13 seasons of professional football can go by in a flash, and I was grateful for every second of it. This game gave me everything, not without taking a few pieces of me along with it. Playing offensive line, it's been one of the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences of my life. Now, thanks to Audible, I look forward to sharing insights and stories with you of our favorite NFL stars, and of course, the fraternity of athletes that protect them. Offensive linemen are eternally bonded, and I am proud to forever be a part of the blocking brotherhood. I'm Ryan Khalil, and this is Block Forever. Football friends, welcome back to the show. Great to be with you again. If you're a huge NFL fan and you're looking for more insights into what the players are actually thinking about, as well as what's going on behind the scenes, well, you're in the right place. High-level football conversations between current and former players, that's what we're all about here at Block Forever. Which leads me to today's show. I've got two really great interviews coming up. The first with a former USC teammate of mine, Brian Cushing, who, as you know, went on to play almost a decade for the Houston Texans. We got into a bunch of topics, including some of Pete Carroll's coaching philosophies, some mistakes Bill O'Brien made when he went from Penn State to the NFL, and we discussed his insights on a team that wins the division and one that loses 14 games in a row, unfortunately something he experienced in back-to-back years. Later in the show, I'm going to speak with a guy I hadn't talked to before, Patriots center David Andrews. He had some great stuff on what it was like to snap to Tom Brady as a rookie, and I also learned a lot about the TB12 method for towel folding. This is something that, Tom requires of all his centers. I had no idea, but there's an exact amount of baby powder he likes to put in the center's pants. We'll get into that later. Before we do that, as always, a quick reminder, tune in to Thursday Night Football only on Amazon Prime. This week, my good buddy Derek Carr and the Raiders travel to LA to face the Rams. We'll get Derek on the show at some point, I promise. I've got a lot of questions for him about year one in the Josh McDaniels era. Looking forward to that combo for sure. And now, please enjoy my interview with my good buddy, former Houston Texan, Brian Cushing. What's up, dude?
Not much, just being a dad,
Well, let's get into it, dude. I appreciate you coming on.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
This, more than anything, is an excuse for me to go back in time and call up old buddies, and you're someone that goes way back in my career. And I kind of know some of the stories of some of my friends, but not as much as I probably should. And I wanted to start by kind of getting into the Brian Cushing origin story. I know a little bit just from my own time, and obviously I did a Google search. And yeah, just sort of the environment you were raised in and really your introduction into the game.
I grew up in New Jersey. I was the youngest of three kids, by a lot. My brother was 13 years older than me. My sister was 16 years older than me. So I was the youngest. I was the quote unquote mistake until I made the NFL. And then I was called different things. It was an interesting household to grow up in. It was almost like having four parents, right? Everyone kind of telling you what to do. But at the same time, I feel like it enabled me to grow up faster. I learned things a lot quicker. My experiences were definitely beyond my years. And, I tell people all the time, I was the first person actually in my family to play football. It was just one of those deals where I think it was about second grade, all my buddies started playing tackle football that had older siblings. And, we'd go out to recess and throw the football around. Back then, recess, you're tackling to the ground, slamming each other on your heads and no one's saying anything. It's a little different now. It was much more physical and unsupervised. And I took a liking to it. My dad was all about it. My mom was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're not doing that. You're going to, get hurt. Until I think it was second grade, I was at a friend's house who was the youngest of four boys, and everybody in the family played football and just went out there. And I was playing with all of them and just scoring touchdowns, tackling people. And eventually his dad was like, listen, I'm going to talk to your dad because I think this is what you have to do. So long story short, finally convinced him, ended up starting playing tackle football third grade. And just from a very young age, I just thought if I was able to do it, it was something I really wanted to do as a career.
When did you start sort of having ambitions or dreams of playing in the NFL? And then what moment did you realize, oh, I could do this. I could play at the next level?
I think high school, I obviously realized I could probably play in college. By my junior, senior year, I wouldn't say football was getting easy, but it was kind of one of those deals you could have an off play and still look okay. You could still make up for it somehow, some way. Once the attention started, picking up of the name, the tapes going out, and it just kind of, it rolled from there. And there was no slowing down. It was, what was next, what was next, what was next. And then the next step up was, freshman year and then practicing against you guys. And coming in as 17, 18 years old and seeing the way you guys worked and seeing the way you guys practiced and the execution, the speed in and out of the huddle and just how crisp everything was from the bag drill as soon as we got it, walked through the gates, at the practice field and how everything was on a whistle and how everything was just so routine and just clean overall. It was another eye-opening experience that really showed me the level of dedication it was going to have to take to eventually have the opportunity to play beyond college. And freshman year was a huge learning experience. And the biggest thing I took away from SC was that practices were always harder than games. Always harder than games.
I forget sometimes how hard those practices were. Like soul-crushing hard. They were miserable, man. I remember showing up every week questioning whether I even wanted to do this anymore. I remember getting to the league and being like, oh, this is a cakewalk. Like these practices, not the games. Like obviously the games were way harder in the NFL. But I remember the prep was nothing compared to what we did in college.
And I don't know if that's just because you're younger and a coaching staff knows there's another 5-star sitting behind you. So they're going to work you and see what you have and don't really care what the duration of practice is like. And just seeing a practice script alone is like, how are we going to do all of this in 2.5, 3 hours? How is that even possible? But you adapt and you find a way to do it. And, before you know it, it just becomes, second nature to you, right? And we're running 40 plays of ones versus ones after an individual, after a tackling circuit, after special teams. And then still have our 9-on-7 and our specific 7-on-7 scout team stuff that we haven't even talked about the other team yet. We're just competing against each other first for the first hour and a half, full go. And you knew if you didn't, that you were going to be on the highlight tape the next day in a team meeting on the wrong end of it too. I thought Pete did an amazing job of motivating college kids and obviously motivating NFL guys now of just getting the most out of them and really finding out who wanted to be there and who wanted to compete every single day. And if you didn't, you were either going to get exposed or eventually you're going to transfer or get kicked out. That was his weeding process. I think he did a really good job of recruiting the right guys. Really good talent, but I think most importantly, the right guys.
There was a good mix on those teams of like 5-star guys and blue collar guys.
Yeah.
And he did a great job in balancing not only the talent level, but just the work ethic of those guys. Because you had the guys that were really competitive, and then you had the guys who knew how to just compete and practice really hard every day and be good company men, which I think you need both. But I don't know. I feel like his style wouldn't work today.
No.
It's too hard now because it's like you can transfer whenever you want. There's all this NIL money now. Yeah. It's kind of nuts.
I think it is kind of a dying breed of practice or philosophy. But at the same time, I can't imagine Saban and Dabo being that much different with what they demand out of practice. I think as long as you stress the importance of practice and the honor of being part of that team or college, right? And the lineage that has come before you is what keeps you there and the opportunity of what you have moving forward. And I talk to people all the time about NIL and how much different that makes sports. And I think it does. And, but I think what it also does is it exposes kids who are there for that reason, right? I think that with the NIL and a big recruit, if his goal is money and he gets it, yeah, he's probably going to shut it down after that, right? And as opposed to shutting it down first year in the NFL when he gets paid. But if a player is really there to be the best football player and teammate he can possibly be, whether he's getting the NIL money or not, that's not his long-term goal. His long-term goal is to be a successful football player and to be remembered. So I think it goes beyond that. And I don't know. Maybe it exposes kids for who they are at a younger age, as opposed to that first big check in the NFL. But I think the guys that want to play football, the true football guys, will always be true football guys, no matter what. Yeah, I came into Houston in 2009, and up until that point, we had not had a winning season or been to the playoffs. But you can walk into a locker room and you can say, "Oh my God, these guys are terrible." We got a long way to go. But I never felt that. I felt that when I walked in, they were close, and it was just a couple pieces away. I felt like the mindset was really good, and it all started with Gary Kubiak, just really an offensive guru, but more importantly, a really good head coach that held everybody accountable. And I knew that from my first practice when I think I was 5 yards from the sideline, and I decided to walk off and was called out from across the field. I'm on the defense side of the ball, and he's 30 yards behind the offense, and he sees me all the way there, and first practice, first round guy, didn't care. Cushing, when we're here, we're running all the way off the field. And it was one of those moments like, wow, okay, I'm not exempt from, getting chewed out, and I like that. That's pretty cool. And I saw it happen to Mario Williams. I saw it happen to D'Amico Ryans, Dante Robinson, Matt Schaub, whoever. It didn't matter. If you had a bad game Monday morning on film, you were being told in front of the entire team. I think he held everybody accountable. I remember his own personal phone going off in a meeting one time, and him putting $10,000 on the table the next morning into the pot. It didn't matter who you were. If you broke a team rule, if you didn't do what you were told or asked to do, there was repercussions. And I thought that was very cool. I think it kind of kept everybody in check, but everybody loved playing for him at the same time. So the biggest thing was he was just a Southern gentleman. Honestly, Texas born and raised, came back to Houston. This was his dream job, and did a lot of good things for our football team. But at the same time, was also a players coach. So it was kind of up to us. It was up to us, and what we could and couldn't do. Gave us a lot of leeway. So he was an awesome coach, and he coached me for 5 years in Houston. Crazy last year, guy had a stroke on the field. We ended up going, I think, 4-12. He got fired, and then Bill O'Brien came in right from Penn State. So that was an interesting experience too, and totally different philosophy as far as coaching. He had that New England background, and there was some things I think he tried to change, but a lot of it was emulating Bill Belichick. The first thing he did was take the carts away. We had a long walk to our practice facility. One of the first things he did was he took the transportation away, so everybody was walking over. So there was a lot of things, just little things that just pissed guys off. But the more you got to know Bill, really cool guy, really, really smart coach. I think Bill would even admit this. I think his downfall was that sometimes he wanted to coach so much, right? He was a little bit of defense. And then there'd be times during the game he'd be calling the offensive plays. I think if he gets another opportunity, he'd probably back off a little bit, let his coaches coach and kind of just oversee the team. It was his first true NFL head coaching experience, and coming from Penn State, he probably had to do all those things, right? But the NFL is a little bit different, definitely more than Coach Kubiak. I mean, we hit a lot, and we tackled to the ground. We went live. In camp, we would do our dynamic warm up, our stretch, blow the horn, and he put the ball down on the 1 yard line, ones versus ones. So a lot of learning along those years, and like I said, very physically demanding. Because that New England mindset came right to Houston, and some guys responded and some guys didn't.
But so for you, objectively, though, looking back at it, what do you think is the right balance of that? What do you think was sort of what worked and what didn't?
I think a lot of it depends on the team you have. A lot of it depends on what position you play too, right? I think you would probably agree with me that certain days and throughout the year that you have to hit a little bit, right? You have to do things full go 100%. And you don't want it being the first time, Sunday in a game, and you're playing against Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman and those guys, and you hadn't gotten a look like that all week or in the last 2-3 weeks. So I think there's a time and place to turn up the notch and go 100%. I think there's a time and place to kind of back off, and I think the best coaches are the ones that can kind of feel that pulse of the team and understand where they are and what they need and what they don't. And I think the best coaches are also the ones that communicate with the leaders on the team and kind of have an open, transparent conversation weekly. That was something that Bill brought in that I liked. Friday mornings, we'd kind of all sit down in his office and kind of just talk about where we were, how we were feeling, and how the week went. And it was good. I think it brought us closer as a team and kind of got us all on the same page.
And did you feel like you guys were heard and those meetings were dictating how you guys would practice?
Yes and no. Yes and no, right? There's times where, listen, I'm banged up. I need this. Yeah, no problem, right? And then, trainers telling you, hey, you're down today. Okay. And then I'm asking why I don't have my pads on at practice, right? It's like, is anyone communicating here? And, who's in charge? I was told I didn't have to practice. So, I just think the better communication overall, the better the team will be.
There's a lot of broken promises that happen in the NFL, especially when it comes to, we're going to give you a break. We're not going to give you a break. Sure. Something gets lost in translation. Yeah. I've had that happen many a times. And you're pissed about it, but sometimes it's like you kind of understand. It's like, oh, it's too many people got promised a day off, and now there's no players to practice, so somebody has to.
I tore my ACL in New York on a Monday night, and I just remember sitting outside the locker room like, well, you're going to have to play this contract out yet, because we were in contract talks before and then tore the ACL, so I knew that the talks were kind of off the table for a little bit. And just sitting there, just thinking I needed to come back healthy and prove myself to sign again. But I actually signed after the third preseason game before the season started, which, showed me that the team had a ton of faith in me because I wasn't even 100% cleared yet to really play. And they gave me a deal, which at the time became the highest paid for my position. So, it was very rewarding. Very glad I signed the contract because at the same time, that year coming back, played 7 games and then tore it and then broke my leg again in Kansas City. Obviously devastating, and felt like I was probably never the same physically after the second injury. After the first one, I felt good, I think, but anytime, no matter who's doing your surgery or rehab, you hurt your leg twice that bad, there's going to be some permanent damage.
I played with Thomas Davis, who went through something similar, and I was always fascinated with how he was able to have such a positive outlook on how he was going to come back stronger and healthier. And
yeah,
I mean, his self-talk was by far one of the best I've ever seen. And, for those who've never been through a season-ending injury and having to have surgery, it's such a lonely, emotional journey to, one, try to convince yourself that you can come back, and then to convince everybody else that you're still the player that they're looking forward to having. What was that journey like for you, and how were you able to overcome that?
Well, first off, TD's an incredible human being, and I reached out to him, reached out to Adrian Peterson, I reached out to Wes Welker, all guys that had similar injuries and were able to come back. I definitely wasn't as positive as some of those guys. I think though the second I stopped feeling bad for myself was the second I kind of turned the corner. What was done, right? The injury had happened. There was no going back or preventing it. So then once I learned to move forward, I was in a better place. I remember the first time I hurt my knee and started feeling better, and it was clear to jog and clear to run. It was like I was always testing it though, right? Even in the house, if there's a column in the house, I was doing like a pass rush move on it. If I was going up the stairs, I was seeing if there's any difference between my left and right leg. And I also remember my son was just born when I tore my ACL, and then I started jogging and then running, and then as he actually started walking and crawling, and I remember like him getting anywhere near my leg, I was so guarded. Like if he got near it, I got a little nervous, I got a little guarded, and I was like, oh man, there's definitely some mental hurdles I still need to go over in order to get back to playing, never mind worrying about a 9-month-old getting near my leg. It was a long road that unfortunately, led to another long road. But at the same time, it's part of the game. It really is. And I hate saying that, but it truly is.
Those few teams you guys won the AFC South, what was the difference from those teams to the following year, 2013, when you guys fell 2-14?
Not much, honestly, as you know, right? I mean, you could basically have the same roster and have completely two different results. I talk about people with sports all the time. They ask me, Who's going to win Super Bowl this year? Who's going to win this or who's going to do that? And I tell them probably the healthiest team, honestly. Probably the team that's clicking the best, and it's not the one that's going 16-0 during the regular season, right? Because how many times has that turned out? Once, ever. It's about getting hot at the right time. It's about, your key players staying healthy and your role players understanding what's asked of them, I think. I think from 2012 to 2013, the roster wasn't drastically different, but I think we had lost a couple guys that were super unselfish, maybe journeymen that helped us where we needed it the most. You're one or two plays away from winning a game or losing a game. And it comes down to the smallest details, as you know. It's just 2013, I've probably gone over, 1,000 times in my mind and what went wrong. And I can honestly say I still can't pinpoint it to this day because it's just, I honestly think we had a better roster if you look at talent from top to bottom from a 2013 to a 2014 when we go 12-4. Come back the next year and say, this is our year. Win the first 2 games and then lose 14 straight. It's mind-blowing, right? Like there's so much more psychology that goes into the game that I think people realize instead of just lining up and saying we're better and we're going to win.
But some teams feel like they're doing it more consistently than others. I mean, obviously New England's one everybody talks about, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Seahawks. I mean, obviously some of these teams not this year, Packers, Eagles. But what are those teams doing that you think the bottom half aren't?
Elite quarterback play is massive. It's just go back to the Super Bowl winners, right? Of the last 10 years, and you can name a top 10 solid quarterback on every single team. I mean, just guy that is going to go out there and throw for a ton of yards, make a lot of good plays, probably make some mistakes too, but make up for it. So I think that's a staple of every really, really good, consistent team. It's just elite quarterback play. Guys that when a play breaks down and, the play they drew up in the week is just completely blown up, still is able to make something out of nothing. I think that is, if not one, top 2 for sure of important things and how to be consistent for that long. Like I said, staying healthy, establishing a philosophy that's just a blueprint for the building. And this is what we follow. And we might get off this path, but the quicker we can get back on this path, the better we'll be as a team.
You're talking about in terms of staying healthy?
No, I just mean just overall team philosophy, right? As far as like a bad loss or back-to-back losses. And, instead of turning that into 3, you turn it into a winning streak of 4 after that. And just being able to get back on that path as soon as possible. And it's worked for some teams for a long time that they don't panic. They don't panic or make a drastic roster move. They go back to their basics. They go back to, their philosophy and their morals, and they pound it until it works. I think that's huge in the NFL, and I think it comes with a lot of older leadership as well. Everybody is always quick to, say this guy's old and we need to get him out of the building, or we need someone cheaper. Well, you don't understand what that guy's doing behind closed doors or what he's saying either, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a guy that's been, preaching a message or helping a younger guy out or whatever it takes to get the team back to where they need to be. So there's a lot of unsung heroes, I think, in the NFL too, that if you weren't on the team, you wouldn't even really probably know their name or know that they contributed as much as they do. So after I was done playing, I coached with the team for 2 more years. And it wasn't until I went back and coached, I really got the full understanding of really how hard the coaches work and how much the little things are important to them and how much depends on us winning and their lifestyle. Right? Because we kind of get, as players that have been in the organization for a while, that have made a good amount of money, that are, quote unquote established, we kind of get in our own little bubble, right? Where everything can be a little comfortable, a little safe. I'm looking at guys in the meeting, I'm in the meeting or the locker room and other coaches, and I can just see the stress on them, right? And how every single week is dictating how they feel and their mood. And, understanding why a guy that's sleeping on his couch 4 days a week blows up on a Friday because someone screws up a route. They put so much stock into it and work so hard. I just think, at times when a player isn't reciprocating or acknowledging that is when, that kind of disconnect can happen.
How's the body feeling now these days?
Pretty good. I'm just trying to stay as busy, work out as much as possible, continue to keep moving.
Do you ever worry about the concussion stuff? I do all the time.
Absolutely.
I worry about it, but I also am not like ready to go sue the NFL like I didn't know what I signed up for.
Yes. Yeah,
That's always crazy to me.
It's kind of, where I'm at and what I feel too. I mean, I wouldn't change my experience for the world. Like I hear people all the time, like if I had to go back, I wouldn't have played. Okay, that's fine, but I would not have.
Mm-hmm. I'm the same.
What I did, I loved. And I understood at the time that, there was a good risk of serious long-term damage. I don't have a PhD in kinesiology. I haven't studied the brain. I haven't studied the body enough to know that what I did was not the healthiest thing for me. Like it's pretty much a given right there. But, now moving forward, I am going to do as much as possible to try to prevent any of that. Now that the focus has kind of shifted from probably being as quick and fast, as strong as possible to now being as healthy as I can be and to just stay as clear mentally as possible. I still get in my chamber as much as I can. I get the IVs as much as I can, and just research everything that's out there, see what works for people, see what hasn't. And once again, though, individual cases, right? It's going to take a lot of data and research to be able to see what's proven and what's not.
Well, I'm sure you're doing a great job of it, buddy. Love you. Always love catching up.
You too, man.
Appreciate you coming on and sharing with me.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
You can listen to Block Forever and other sports content on Audible. Audible is the home of storytelling, audiobooks, originals, podcasts, and more. Start listening free at audible.com. My next guest, currently in his 7th season, is the starting center for the New England Patriots. You probably know the name, but you don't hear much about him unless he's taking his shirt off at the Super Bowl parade. He's my kind of guy. He's a true technician, a team captain, and just a great all-around person. It was really great to get to know him a little bit, so please enjoy my interview with David Andrews. Well, what's up, man?
How we doing?
Doing good, bud. How are you?
Good. I just got to say, before we get going, one of my favorite all-time things are the videos with you and Will Ferrell. Those videos. Really? Oh, dude, I thought that was some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen.
Well, now I got 2 fans, you and my mom, so I appreciate that. First of all, welcome to Block Forever. This was a show that was conceived from the frustrations of me trying to find conversations in the game from the perspective of my people, offensive linemen. You're in an O-line room that has had some tremendous talent come through there and help build that dynasty in New England. Guys, I remember when I first came in watching a ton and admiring were guys like Logan Makins and Matt Light. How aware do you think most players are when they come into rooms like that? Or do you think most players don't care?
I think you should care because I feel pressure from those guys, not from them, but I guess to uphold what they started, right? I thought they set a standard. Those are guys that I've met through the organization and I'm friends with. So a lot of them are still local up here, and so I've met them and we've just become friends and we'll hang out and stuff. But I feel that pressure because I feel like it's my job to honor them, right? They came through and set that precedent. One thing in our building, we have pictures of decades and important players, and there's a picture right when you walk in of Copen, Light, and Logan, and it talks about, I think maybe all 3 of them went to a Pro Bowl one year together, and how important they were to the team. And what they did for the team. So I take a lot of respect in that, and obviously I got to play for Dante Scarnecchia, who really was the key factor in all of that, key factor in a lot of my success. And so just the respect I have for him and the way he carried the room and the standard for the room, I think still means a lot to me, just because I know it works, and I have a lot of respect for that.
In Carolina, we had John Matsko, who was a great offensive line coach. And some years it felt like we didn't put an emphasis on either drafting or signing free agent offensive linemen because we felt like John could build that group. He was really great at finding raw talent and making them fit in the system. New England feels like a place that's like that. And obviously Scarnecchia is kind of Belichick's secret weapon since the 90s. I'm curious, what is it about him that allowed him to do such a great job doing that?
I think Scar just got the best out of people, right? Day in and day out, no matter what. And, Scar always said you didn't have to be big enough. You don't have to be fast enough. You just have to be smart enough, tough enough, and the other stuff will take care of itself. And, I think you look at that, guys, Steve Neal, never played football, was a wrestler, came in, had a great career here. Obviously there's been some high profile, Light was like a 2nd round pick, Logan 1st round. And they
even your origin story too.
Yeah, and then you kind of get into my career when it was me as an undrafted guy, Shaq Mason, who came from a wing T offense in college football, and guys like that who they just developed and really built. And another guy, Ted Karras was a 6th round draft pick, and he's ended up playing a lot of football now at Cincinnati. And offensive line is an interesting position because I think if you get guys that will buy into the technique, they're smart enough, they're tough enough, you can do a lot of good things. And I think offensive line also, you can have 4 all-pros and then that one guy kind of the weakest link, and you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I think you take an offensive line of 5 guys who maybe aren't the quote-unquote high-profile best, whatever, but if they all work together, see the game through the same set of eyes, you got a chance, I think.
So I've always been fascinated. Obviously, you guys have had so much success in understanding the culture and what you guys sort of demand of players. How was Scar and Coach Belichick with guys that didn't buy in right away?
Well, I think, it's different for everything, but I take a lot of pride in that part of it. I take a lot of pride that, if we're going to be in full pads, we're in full pads every day if we could, and what is it, 13 days you get full pads? We're going to get all 13. You get a bye week in the playoff, you're going to be in pads. It's snowing and 30 degrees outside with, torrential winds, you're going to be outside. And that's part of it. And I kind of like that, I like the challenge of it. I like that it's not for everyone. I take pride in that sometimes.
And are you somebody that goes out of their way to try to rally the guys that maybe are a little bit slow to kind of bring the enthusiasm and positive energy?
Yeah, I think so. I think I love what I get to do every day. I don't make it easy, but I love getting to come here and not having to put on a suit and tie and go respond to emails all day and sit on conference calls. And I'm in a cutoff sweatshirt and, I've got a scraggly beard that doesn't get much better than that, and I enjoy what I do. I love being here. I love New England, the area, the culture, the fan base. It's become a second home to me and my wife. So I just enjoy being here, being a Patriot.
Yeah, those Super Bowl rings also help make you feel that way as well. And well deserved. I'm curious, you were undrafted. You chose New England. Walk me through that process and what you sort of go through and the kind of checklist outside of, obviously it's a winning franchise, but what are some of the other intangibles that are important to you when you're trying to make your decision?
Bill came and worked me out in college. He's the only team. I didn't go on a visit, no pre-draft visits, no anything, but Bill came and worked me out. And he literally, the first time I met him, looked me straight in my eyes and told me he wasn't going to draft a center. So it was like, great, nice to meet you too, Coach. Thanks for crushing my dreams.
And then you go home and you cross off the Patriots off your list of potential spots.
I was actually working out with Shaq Mason, and I was teaching Shaq how to snap because, all the draft pundits and everybody else was saying Shaq Mason would more likely be a center in the NFL. So I was teaching him to snap. And so draft day comes, and I knew I wasn't getting drafted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was hoping that there was a chance in 6 and 7. And then, they draft Shaq in the 4th round. And so I'm sitting there like, he lied. Like, he told me they weren't going to draft a center. They had Brian Stork the year before, drafted him in the 4th round. He won the Remington and then obviously started on the Super Bowl team in 14. So I'm kind of like, crossing them off, like, talking to Dallas, Atlanta. Finally, they offered me a lot of money for an undrafted guy. And Bill told me that Shaq wasn't going to play center when he called me after the draft. And it's kind of like, well, still believe in a man's word. And, I came up here and I remember I called my dad one day in OTAs. I didn't take a single team rep in an OTA. Not a single rep.
So what did you think at that point? Did you think you were making
I called
team?
my dad, and I hadn't finished college, and I was like, yeah, this might be it, man. Like, it's been a good run.
So how did you go from that to snapping the ball to Tom Brady in week 1?
And, life's about opportunities, and we had some guys get banged up, and I kind of got thrust in there, and I think, I earned Tom's respect pretty quickly. I would try to be there as early as could, work as hard as I could, try not to mess anything up. Try to do everything right and earn his trust. So, I ended up starting week 1 with 3 rookies. So, on the inside, so it was messy, man. We were fighting for it in there. And then, I got benched week 10, Monday Night Football. Ended up playing a little bit here and there, started another game, and then just kind of filling in for the rest of the year. And the next year, me and my wife didn't know what were going to happen. Brian Stork was still here, and one of us was going to make it, and one of us was going down the road. And I was just able to win the job and tried to never look back. So see how much longer we can keep this train going.
It's a really eerie, similar story for me, which is the talk about me was too small, undersized. Came in, the 2nd round pick the year before got cut in Carolina, and then somehow with injuries or whatnot, they needed a guard. I never played guard before in my life. I remember going to play against Houston. It was a disaster. I gave up like 4 sacks or something crazy, benched. And then somebody got hurt in week 10, came in, and then got to stay in the rest of that season and then got to get the job the next year. But it's funny, man. You're so right. Opportunity, that word gets thrown around a lot, but it really is about, I don't think a lot of guys realize how ready you have to stay, because you'll get that moment and it'll pass you if you're not ready for it.
As a player, that when a guy does get that opportunity and they're not ready, it frustrates you because the show goes on. And, everyone takes a lot of pride in winning and wants to be at their best. And so it's what makes, to me, the game so special, because I think it parallels just so close with life. And, you never know. You get the opportunity to talk to a pretty girl or whoever, job opportunity, you don't know, right? You just have to be ready and take advantage of this.
I also think your support system, too, is important. And it's such a fragile line. And I was lucky enough to have that in Carolina, where when doubt starts creeping in, just having somebody there that can kind of push you back the other way. Because I always feel bad for guys that I think could have been great players and had long careers, but they didn't have that person to catch them and put them back on the horse, I'm curious, who was that for you? Because I can see how easy that would have been for you to get discouraged and kind of shut it down. Or was a lot of that self-motivated?
Someone early in my career that really pushed me was Ryan Wendell. Wendy, he's obviously coaching now for Buffalo.
Somebody there in Buffalo told me Ryan is the most overqualified assistant coach in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he's brilliant. And, he was someone that really pushed me. But early in my career, man, he pissed me off. God, he was such an asshole. He would make me lead the film, like O-line film, right? You're watching film as a rookie. And that was hard for me.
What do you mean? Like he'd make you lead a session?
Yeah, like lead the blitz tape up, like get up there, like tell us about like what their blitzes are, like how they're doing, like how are we gonna do it, like. And we always play Jaw the 3rd preseason game, right? And that's kind of like when you really start, like, those first 2 preseason games can be kind of messy, but that 3rd one you kind of try to get.
No, it's like a real dress rehearsal.
Yeah, like that 3rd one's kind of a real deal, a little bit of game plan, like actual practice week, And so, he's got me up there doing that. He's asking me questions. He's grilling me. about y'all's defense, and that was when, it was 2015 when how good you guys were, and Davis and Kuechly are running around like madmen, and it's just chaos, double mug, like, and he's sitting there just grilling me and forcing me to get outside my comfort zone. And I wasn't great at watching film as a rookie, guys just trying to get the plays right, but things like that really challenged me and kind of showed me what the standard is and how you do things.
How was Tom with your confidence and your development and building you up as the guy he's got to have the most intimate relationship with?
He was hard on me too, really hard. I thought you
like what? Give me an example,
dude. So he's so adamant on keeping the ball dry. So if you watch any center that has played for Tom Brady or played in New England, we all have towels in our butts.
Right.
And it's a certain system how it has to be done. You got to fold it the right way. You got to put it in the right way. If it's super hot, baby powder back there to dry it up, keep it dry. I mean, he would come around with the trainers and baby powder and just dump full bottles in our pants.
What about extra pants? I've had to do that a few really humid games.
Well, if you do the towel right and change them out and the baby powder, you're going to be fine.
This is amazing. I'm learning stuff well after I'm done playing.
Yeah, so I still do the towel today, and
the baby powder?
I've laid off the baby powder a little bit. I'm like,
that's only like if you're going to play in like Tampa or something,
yeah,
right?
Or like a grinder of a training camp day,
right?
And I think he was just doing that more to be a jerk at times. But I think he really pushed me. It had to be right. And I think one thing I've always respected about talking about guys up here is the details and the little details. It's like when we're doing a drill, put your foot on the line. Not off the line, put it on the line. And I think I respected that. And it seems like it doesn't matter because we're just doing, a warm-up drill basically after we'd stretch. But if you're going to do that right, then I can trust you to peel a, 3-tech coming to pick me in the side of the head, and I can trust you that you're going to do that right. And I think there's something to that. The details matter, all the little details, how you do certain things. I just think it really matters.
What else outside of the towel was important for
Tom?
For TB12, yeah.
We're playing Pittsburgh Steelers, my first game. I've probably already thrown up on myself in the locker room. I'm trying not to throw up on national TV, Thursday Night Football, to open the season. They had the, not ring ceremony, the banner ceremony, because they just won the year before.
No pressure.
It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, organization, you grow up watching. And it's just like, oh, man, here we go. And it wasn't raining. It was kind of misting, but, turf kind of just holds water. He comes up to me and was like, hey, let's not roll the ball on the ground out there today. Just barely touch it and don't get it all soaking wet. I'm just like, dude, I've got like 1,000 other things I'm trying to worry about right now. Like, you can deal with the ball just being the slightest bit moisture in the air, okay?
How involved were you in helping, and maybe not so much your rookie season, but even as you guys got comfortable, how involved were you in helping identify things and help make calls and change things, or did you kind of just let him do his thing?
No, I mean, we definitely worked really close together, especially on third down, and when things got definitely a little bit more exotic, and, learning how he wanted to declare things and how he saw the game. It was funny because I was getting taught the game very slow as a rookie, and so I'm learning 2 + 2 is 4, and he's on, spaceship calculus. He can send the football to Mars if he needed to, and I always watched him and I always listened to him when he was even talking to somebody else about something. I was just trying to soak up as much as I could about him to learn how he operated and how he wanted to operate. But I mean, he was so smart. He saw the game in ways I never thought you could. Which also there were some things because, I was brought up with Dante, and Dante was very big on his rules. Sometimes Tommy wanted to break those rules, and that was not really discussed. And so there were some interesting times, in that. So because he maybe wanted something done, and it's kind of like, oh, Can't really
like
do
what?
that.
Like give me an
Like,
example.
a protection rule. Like, hey, we don't duel across the ball, maybe, or something. But he maybe wanted it done. I could have go tell Scar that that's how Tom wants it done. So I just kind of.
And 10 times Tom does that. How many times is he right?
12.
12 times.
Yeah.
So he's breaking rules for a reason. It's probably why there's not backlashes, because it's getting done. I'm curious. I know you get a lot of Tom Brady questions, but you got to play with one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
In this role reversal that you have now with Mac Jones, does he ever ask you questions specifically about Tom? Like, how would Tom do this? How would Tom do that? Because he didn't get to really play with him and sort of learn the way that you got to see both in words and action.
Not really. I think that's something, he's done a great job of, is coming in and being Mac Jones. He's not trying to be anyone else. He's trying to be himself.
And what about you? Do you go out of your way to say, hey, you're doing a great job, but
no,
this legend used to do things this way, or he did things like that, and that could be helpful?
I don't think that's necessarily as important. There's some things, maybe how I identify things, that I learned from Tom. And maybe that's, kind of like, hey, like this just kind of paints the picture for us up front, and, will help you too. Right, because seeing the game through the same set of eyes is the biggest thing. But, like I said, look, Mac's job is to be Mac, and that's my job to encourage Mac to do that, support him, and let him be him. And, I'll be David, he'll be Mac, and we'll get this thing rolling.
You played 3 Super Bowls in your first 4 years, but you talk about the Will Ferrell video I did. I remember a video you did after the Rams win. And obviously proud to see us showing off the bod in that video, talking about the shirtless viral video. I'm always curious with New England culture and Coach Belichick, how somebody like him feels about that kind of stuff. Because it feels like some coaches seem to be more hypersensitive to that kind of stuff than others.
I think if this was a Thursday night before we go play the Baltimore Ravens and I'm on stage at the Bruins game chugging a beer, that might be more of an issue, and you won't ever see me doing that. But, during the off season, it's time to cut it loose, especially after you win one. So really, there's not much rules after that. Look, I mean, that's what you do it for, right? You do it, play to try to get some of those and win one of those, and you got to enjoy yourself at that point. I was a little bit more reserved my first one. The second one, I just said, you know what, we're going to have fun today.
Are most guys in New England reserved, or are you guys allowed to sort of be your own people and have a little bit of personality and fun? Or is it kind of like you guys punch in and clock and go to work, and every now and then there's a funny, crazy tight end or somebody that can have personality?
No, I think that gets misconstrued a little bit. I mean, we got
It's
some
definitely
characters.
The perception outside.
Yeah, it is. And look, I mean, I think, it's important to me that when it's football time, it's football time. And I'm going to do whatever I can Monday to Saturday to be ready to go Sunday. And I don't think you ever want to be a distraction to your team, right? And, but during the off season and when it's downtime, if I'm at a Bruins game, I'm probably going to chug a beer when they put me on screen. That's just in the off season, that's going to happen. So I think you can be who you are as long as it's not a distraction. And, I think it gets portrayed that way, but it's not always like that. And I think, we've had a lot of characters come through here and be a part of our teams, but also those guys, when, it was nut cutting time and you were all, it was all had to be laid on the line. They were laying it on the line with you. So I think that's really what matters.
I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I sincerely am a big fan of yours. I see a lot of myself in you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Minus the damn Super Bowl rings, you son of a bitch.
Hey, someone's got to do it.
But I wish you the best of luck and look forward to seeing you guys play.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it, man.
All right, that's the show for today. A big thanks to Brian Cushing and David Andrews. Great catching up with both of them. Thank you, fellas, for the time. Next week, I've got Andrew Whitworth on the show. Talk about leaving the game in style, walking off into the sunset with a Super Bowl trophy at the age of 40. You son of a gun. So jealous. Final reminder, Raiders, Rams, only on Amazon Prime. That does it for me. Have a great week. Talk to you next Wednesday. This has been an Audible original production of Block Forever, produced by Fresh Produce and Audiorama. Matt Waxman is our lead producer. Sound design and edit by Kenny Holmes. Our producers are Kenny Holmes and Matt Schrader. Production assistant Ben Gerstel. And our talent booker is Kristen Dunn. For Audible, executive producer Pat Shaw. For Audiorama, the executive producer, well, that's me, Ryan Khalil. For Fresh Produce Media, executive producers Colin Moore, Joe Killian, and Jason Ross. Head of production, Elena Bovitz. Our supervising producer is Jamila Zara Williams. Production coordinator, Henry Koch. And our production manager is Herminio Ochoa. Special thanks to Powerhouse Capital and Mikey Fowler. And I'm your host, Ryan Khalil. Copyright 2022 by Audiorama Inc. Sound recording copyright 2022 by Audible Originals LLC.